I'm Jay Richards, and we're at the COSM 2021 conference, and I am joined by my friend Matt Scholz, who we met actually when you were about 18 or 19, right?
It's been a long time.
It has been at Discovery Institute, and you're now the founder of OISON Biotechnologies.
Yeah.
I know you had a serial entrepreneur in biotech. And you had this fascinating panel, actually, just got off with Matt McElwain and Jim Tour and Steve Meyer. And so you're this sort of intersection of chemistry, philosophy of science, and computer engineering. So tell me about, just sort of summarize your talk for us.
Well, so I was kind of making this bridge from atoms to bits, and this has been a theme in the conference to a certain extent. And I guess if you think about it, life is the original bridge between atoms and information, right? And it doesn't get thought of in that context a lot, but that's really what got me into the field, which was this the North Star really was the essence of life is information. And so the talk is mostly working through this and how that kind of philosophy has woven its way through the technical things that we've done.
So you're focused on these longevity questions, right? Which is, of course, that's sort of the holy grail, obviously. But tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think aging is, the master corollary for pretty much any malady you can think of. And it is the dominant risk factor for pretty much every disease.
Even for COVID-19?
Yeah, even for COVID-19. I gave a talk near the beginning of this where I had this chart where it's got a risk of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and it's these hockey sticks basically. They're like none for a long time and then skyrocket. And you could lay COVID mortality right over the top of it. It was like actually really very striking when you look at it like, wow, that has basically the same curve as all-cause mortality.
So basically, if you focus on longevity, it's not that you're saying, oh, look, I want us to live forever, I'm going to do that, but rather, if you focus on longevity, you're likely to solve a lot of these end-of-life problems.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, our mission, really initially, especially, has been to improve health span as opposed to lifespan. And in some respects, living longer is a side effect. And when we were first getting into this, I mean, you could do a little survey, it's like, who wants to live to 200? And almost no one says yes, because all they can think of is being a 100-year-old for another 100 years. And they're like, that sounds terrible. But I mean, if you could undo this damage, if you made a person immortal, they wouldn't be 100 forever, they'd be 30 forever. And that notion that like pretty much most of the pathologies of age can be traced back to these kinds of damages that we're attempting to address is, I think, a really, has a clarifying aspect to it, where you see like we want to be healthy. I want to die, young, violent death at 150, like wreck a motorcycle or something on the interstate.
The mortality curve sort of completely changes, so you don't have 30 years of sickness that's being treated, which is what we've gotten good at treating these ailments and extending life there, but you're extending life over this actually very difficult period. So your idea is, look, okay, forget about the transhumanist myth and immortality. Just think about sort of solving that problem.
Yeah, I mean, and the perverse thing is a lot of modern medicine has actually given us like increased morbidity. And so what we really want to do is compress morbidity so that like you're in perfect health and die quickly. And we saw this even in our experiments in mice where they live about 20% longer or so, but they'd be in good health up till the end. Like they'd be like minding their own business and you'd find them dead in their cage the next day. Like they just keel over. And that's not so bad if you think about how one might have to go. I don't want to spend the last decade of my life in hospice or something. It'd be terrible. And so I think that's the focus. And of course, we approach this as from an engineering perspective, looking at what's breaking and why, and trying to fix these various things. And it's like anything else. Once you fix one problem, another one will become the dominant one. Right. And our hope, though, is that as we patch more and more of these things, you end up with longer, healthier lifespan.
So give me some of the details about what it is you're working on that does this.
Well, we got started building things called senolytics and killing senescent cells. And you can think of a senescent cell a little bit like a zombie cell. Like typically when a cell gets damaged, it either fixes itself or kills itself. But it's possible to damage a cell in such a way that it can't fix itself and it can't function again either. So it doesn't die and it just sits there in like limbo. And one of the more kind of pernicious things these cells do is they secrete a bunch of inflammatory cytokines, these immune stimulating molecules, and they basically poison nearby stem cells. And so the idea of getting rid of them is that you actually have more latent regenerative potential than it might seem. It's that your regenerative capabilities are actively being suppressed by this damage. And so if you simply kill them, you regenerate better. And so we saw things like increase in bone density in old age. Like it was actually, these mice were approaching like a 100-year-old person, and their bone density is going up, not down. And it's creeping back towards what it was when it was younger. And because the body has it's much better at maintaining homeostasis if you get rid of things that are disrupting it. And so that's how we got started. And I think really the the holy grail is kind of, in situ tissue regeneration to rebuild you on the fly, indefinitely. Like, you might swap out components from a car or something, and eventually you might be all new. But over time, just keep
still the same person, but you've got healthy muscles.
No original parts. And well, I mean, it's a fine line, I suppose, that they're all you in this case.
Yes.
But I mean, consider for a moment that you can take kind of the oldest egg you can find and the oldest sperm you can find. You put them together, and instantly, basically, you've got something that's 0 years old. Yeah. All the damage of the life, those are old cells, right? Like all the sins of their youth and old age are erased. And if you think about that, and you just follow the logic through, though, I mean, that means that every nucleated cell in your body effectively harbors a program to regenerate everything, to undo aging. And obviously, the challenge is you don't want to turn into an egg again, one giant blob of cells. But you have like this potential wired literally into the fabric of your life, your body that allows for regeneration. And so that eventually the goal is to be able to control these things. And I think that really puts us, into the world of synthetic biology, like much more complex systems than we have today. But.
And we're really thinking at this point about biology as a design system, as an informational system.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you think about it, like the control logic alone is mind-boggling. The fact that if you have like one cell, all these cells in your body, all the nucleated cells have the same genome, but why does a skin cell act like a skin cell? Why does a neuron act like a neuron? And why is it that if I take any of those cells out and put them in a dish, they like mind their own business? I mean, it might be Jay's cell when it's in you, but if I put it in the dish, it's just a cell, and it just swims around, and they can divide, they can go about their life. And so the way that the cells are controlled both on an individual level and on a macro level are fascinating. And in trying to tease out the information that drives this is really, really exciting. And it's a tough problem. But,
I mean, it's nothing like the machines we make, right? I mean, you've got a single-celled embryo that looks sort of undifferentiated and small, and yet it splits, and all these different kinds of cells become themselves, brain and heart cells, or spatial coordinates. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, body plan is really fascinating. Because that's one of those things that's not like clearly encoded in the genome.
Yeah.
Like, I should be able to take your genome and draw a picture of you, but I can't. And that's an interesting thing, really. And that you think of like where there's layers of information. Like I got into biology with immune memory. Your immune memory doesn't live in your brain. It's not like where did I leave my keys?
No,
but it is memory nonetheless. It persists for decades. Like in fact, you can find the cell that holds it, and it's like a distributed memory. And that's very different though than like the memory in your mind, or like even say muscle memory or something like that. And so, but these all are dimensions of information in the body, and they're some we know very little about, and some we have pretty good understanding of.
So, what's your hope 25 years out?
Well, so I'm basically pushing into regeneration. I mean, I guess the term, I guess, that started is this idea of negligible senescence, that you can basically grow old and not get old. That you time goes by, but you maintain full function. And so I'd say like generically, it's to maintain perfect health indefinitely, like to be able to not worry about. I mean, you think like. Consider how much we've extended the human lifespan in the last decade, and we did, or not, last century. And none of those things really involve modifying people. They involve modifying the environment. Starvation, predation, disease,
clean water.
These things. And so they're kind of, in some respects, I think, analogous to the senescent cell issue. That like they're just damage that gets you killed further. Like as we get rid of the things that kill us, we stay healthier for longer. But at some point, you run into like the theoretical limits of the organism, and there are organisms that live longer than we do. I mean, you think like bowhead whale lives like 200 years, and it has at least more than our metabolic requirements. It's a mammal. All these, you say, well, how does it get away with this? It's really big. It should incur like genomic damage worse, but it doesn't. And so understanding what the kind of limits of life are. I mean, think about it, there are still bowhead whales swimming around with wooden harpoons in them from the time Moby Dick was written. Like, I mean, they find them washed up every now and then. You can carbon date the harpoon. And like these guys have been around since guys are throwing sharp sticks at them, threw a few atomic bombs in their ocean to,
they're still
and
around.
then still hanging out. And like, how do they do that? And so I think the general goal is how do we, mitigate suffering, bring health and life to more people, and that's. But it's very much an iterative process. Like I suppose, like any other technology, builds on each other.
Exciting stuff, Matt. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I'm Jay Richards. We're at COSM 2021.